Okay, there we are. Welcome back, everyone. So we're here for more WordCamp. Today we're looking at building sci-fi and fantasy worlds, which means that we will sort of be doing some slides and a few exercises on principles of world building for sci-fi and fantasy. And then we will open the floor to share from your projects. Maybe you're trying to solve some kind of problem in your world building and you think that there's some kind of issue with your setting that you think needs to be resolved. Or maybe you're just starting to put together some kind of world for an upcoming project that you are looking for some kind of guidance on where to take it or how to manage that or how to build that out. Whatever it is, usually for our last 30 to 40 minutes, that's when we are going to shift entirely towards working on your guys' projects and trying to get you to that next step, get those questions answered, and just keep you moving forward. This is part of our bootcamp series, although this one here is not in the official bootcamp. This is like a prep course that we are working up towards the start of our new novel bootcamp, which starts on do we have the date for the start of it? Nacho, I see the end date.
Yeah, it starts September 6th.
September 6th. Oh, just next week.
Saturday.
Okay, great. So we have this is the one sort of like interstitial class between the boot camps before we're getting going on week 0 with the new one. So that will be just next week is when we're starting the novel boot camp. So please sign up if you're interested. You can find that link in the chat now or by typing !boot camps. Then you can find, or boot camp singular. Then you can find all those links in our Discord chat. And I'll drop those links on our Zoom call as well. There it is. Here's the pledge. Let me put that in the Zoom chat. So many tabs to switch between. There we go. Okay, let's dive into today's topic. Look at that G just getting formatted right below the other letters. There we go. All right, world building. Fixed. No, graphic design skills. Okay, so I wanted to ask today, maybe we'll start by just talking about some recent favorite sci-fi and fantasy worlds that we have seen in shows and movies and video games. And maybe let's get into why. What is it that you like about it? What makes it stand out? I'll start with one, but then I'll open the floor to anyone that wants to shout one out and just be ready to say what makes it stand out? What makes you like it? Why do you think it's special? So I'll start today with Fallout. Fallout's only getting bigger with the TV show doing really well, and certainly more games on the way, but these have been around since the 90s. And although the genre of the games have sort of changed over time from isometric role-playing games to more first-person shooter style action and RPGs, the world has stayed more consistent. We are looking at a post-apocalyptic kind of version of America, all the games being set in various cities of America. And it is several hundred years in the future in a world that kind of never really culturally developed past the 1950s. So we are in like the 2200s or something like that. Somebody can give me the exact date if they know the lore better than me. But it is a sort of 1950s vision of the future in which nuclear power is relied on for a lot more than it is in real life, sort of irresponsibly applied to everything from like home refrigeration units to the foods that people eat. There's radioactive material in almost everything. Luke tells us it's the year 2277. Thank you for that. And it is, of course, a world ended by nuclear weapons. So when people emerge from the vaults, all that's left is this old sort of retro-futuristic 1950s technology. I think it's a cool combination of retro and futuristic. And what I really like that has stayed consistent, more or less, though it has modulated a little bit all throughout these different entries, is the tone. And I think the most fun part of this is, despite the fact that it is a world that is full of really horrific, scary things like ghouls and mutants and zombie monsters and all kinds of horrible like radiation creatures and societies that have been devastated by this and have turned into these murderous gangs of raiders and things like that. There is a lighthearted, glib, sort of irreverent tone to the storytelling. Part of that is supported by the world building, given that sort of like the overriding joke of the world being this irresponsible approach towards radioactive power and just like the science, the sort of explosion of science of the mid 20th century. That is pervaded throughout the entire story. You have sort of characters that represent kind of exaggerated versions of politicians from US culture, especially from that time, or various public figures like Elvis and things like that. Some societies in the post-apocalypse that seem to have kind of use those as the foundation for their creation. Like you have a sort of in the New Vegas kind of world, you have a cult that worships this sort of Elvis impersonator as the true king. And there are all various other types of Elvis impersonators, but they think he's the real one. So it just has this kind of pervading goofiness to it that exists in parallel to the seriousness, but also sometimes intermixed with that seriousness, because sometimes the stories have this very grave, epic, dark tone too, but it is always mixed with this lightness and this almost casual approach to the, or like this, I would describe it as a blasé approach to post-apocalyptic violence. So I love how those different tones clash and they mix together and they give this story a really unique identity because there's not a lot of other stuff with this almost Douglas Adams type irreverence woven into such a what seems to be such a dreary world. Okay, so I think the Fallout world building is really well done, and for a lot of people, it's the highlight of the series. Even if the gameplay isn't always going to be the most exciting on a scene-to-scene basis, the world building and the story are really what keep the fans coming back and make this more than just another post-apocalyptic world. Okay. Anybody else want to speak up as to a sci-fi or fantasy world that you particularly like and why? Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead, Dakota.
Um, One of my favorites is, and it's kind of flown under the radar, um, is Outer Wilds. Not to be confused with Outer Worlds. Outer Wilds won Game of the Year in 2019. And the thing that makes this game particularly interesting is you are an alien race that is essentially primitive NASA. Yes, there it is. Primitive NASA. So the whole game is that you are exploring the solar system, and it's all about uh, trying to, figure out why. Why are we here? What's life all about? Is God really real? Like it literally is the Monty Python song from The Meaning of Life. That's basically what the game is. And the thing that makes it interesting is that we're not super sure as to why things are the way that they are. Everything uses real world physics. So it uses velocity, it uses real world kind of techniques that you have to like figure out how they actually work. So there is a sense of grounded realism, despite the fact that, oh, I'm in a ship made out of essentially plywood and rubber bands, basically. And all the missions have failed, but this one, the one that we're on, this is the one that's going to be successful because, of course, it is. And you're essentially in what is essentially a big, like your suit is basically a scuba suit, really. Like that's basically what it looks like. It's like a cross between like an Indiana Jones and like a scuba suit kind of thing. It's really bizarre. But the planets are completely different. There's one that looks like Earth. There's one that is where there's tornadoes. There's like literally like just water tornadoes in the atmosphere. There's one where it's completely destroyed and there's like fish, like anglerfish, just space anglerfish is terrifying. So there's different kinds of environments that you have to like go through and everything is kind of connected together within the story. You think, oh, it's like little bitty, puzzles here and there. But everything kind of makes sense once you get into like the story and everything. And
Cool.
the story and the world building is really the thing that kind of makes this game really fun because of how difficult it is, how like annoyingly hard it can be, but it's just so much fun. It's a very unique take on space exploration. It really is. It's really, really fun.
Cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, really well received game. Haven't played it yet, but seems like what you're really responding to is the variety and the mystery. Like learning the answers to these things actually becomes just as fun as, the gameplay itself. Let's hear from Luke. Go ahead.
Let's talk about the Matrix.
Probably my
My
favorite too. Yeah.
Um, it if you take it literally, you can see all kinds of problems with the world building, but if you take it as a metaphor or an allegory, it all works. My favorite sci-fi thing maybe ever is these first two episodes of the Animatrix called The Second Renaissance, parts 1 and 2, and it is incredible. It adds so much context to the movies, and I don't know, the movies have the machines are like these horrible, monstrous, villains basically. Um, but in the prequel of these shorts, basically humans are the villains and the machines are the innocent like victims. Um, well, maybe not so innocent. It devolves into the war that ends the world basically before the Matrix starts. Um, really great, really great symbolism and imagery and just all these lovely little shots I could call out, like the machines build they settle in the cradle of human civilization, which is like the Middle East, and it cuts to the UN, and there's a guy polishing the big globe, like the gold like map with all the continents, and you see a fly land on the Sinai Peninsula, and he just swats it, and there's this big black like spot, just lots of great visuals in this thing. There's visuals of like robots building pyramids like slaves and things like this. And I don't know, it tickles my brainstem. It's horrible, it's interesting, it's unique, and kind of makes you feel the whole gamut of emotions. So really like it.
Thanks for
Can't
that.
praise it enough.
Yeah,
Go
love the
ahead.
Matrix. And this scene where I mean, you're right. It reframes the machine so sympathetically. This is the scene where they go to the UN as a peace offering,
Yeah.
and one of them brings one of them wears a top hat and a tie, and one of them just brings an apple. Like they're so innocent, they're so pure. They're like, we
Yeah.
just want to make peace, but humans kind of can't let them. Yeah, it's a really, really dark story,
That's
but does
another
make you think of the machines totally differently.
that's another symbol too. It's sort of like the apple of Eden. And the narrator tells you like this won't be the last time the machines take the floor here. And the next time you see like this image of the apple like being eaten by maggots, and it transforms into this black sphere, and then you see the machine like holding the sphere and like delivering his demands or its demands to all these captive humans in the UN as his audience. It's great. You got to watch it.
Agreed. Yeah, such good symbolism. I think I saw one more hand raised on Discord from Nacho. Go ahead.
Yeah, I really like this world in Mark Lawrence's Book of the Ancestor series. It starts out seeming like it's some kind of fantasy world with um, really powerful martial arts nuns and like kind of feudal kingdoms and magic and stuff. But we start to learn over the course of the trilogy that it's actually these people all came to this planet on a spaceship, and it's like many, many, many thousands of years ago. And basically, it became like a snowball planet with a satellite that travels around the equator with a laser or some kind of beam device, like melting the ice. So they have like just like a few miles strip around the Earth, around the world, where it's sort of like habitable, and the rest of the world is ice. And it just sort of like really cool, like you know, like imagining people who kind of forgot what the original where they all came from, but having their own kind of mythologies and religions and stuff that explains like why the world is the way it is. But then over the course of these three books, you can like start to put the breadcrumbs together and you're like, oh, yeah, it's a it came on a spaceship.
Right. Actually, sci-fi.
Yeah.
Some fans really don't like twists like this, but sometimes it totally works. Sometimes you can totally do it. Like Dragon Riders of Pern is one of these series where the author is even like, it's not fantasy, okay? It's sci-fi because they're science dragons because it's a different planet where science can happen. And we're like, yeah, but it's dragons though, so like it's pretty much fantasy.
Yeah.
And she's like, no. Thank you for that. Let's hear from Praveen on Zoom.
Yeah, I'm actually binge watching Firefly right now, and it just gets me how, like, the long coats or the brown coats are still, at comic book conventions, people cosplaying, and it's kind of like I think back then it was all like sci-fi western, but it's taken on a life of its own in different modern societies, kind of the same way Star Trek did in the tech world. Culturally, I think Firefly had a very lasting impact.
Yeah, definitely. And the sort of like complex space world, but without any aliens, is kind of rare to see too. They don't. There's no alien species in Firefly. There's psychic kind of people, and like there are some sort of like out of the box things like that. But as far as I remember, no robots, no aliens.
Yeah, I kind of like, and if you remember around the same time, I think that was 2002, and then more 95, 96 was Space Above and Beyond. Had the same feel. It even had some episodes that kind of had that style, but they had aliens, so it's a good point. I didn't think about the alien aspect.
Yeah, it's one of the only space operas that I can think of with no aliens, no robots at all.
Great.
But yeah, love Firefly. Thank you for that. I think 2004 actually. I want to say 2004. Firefly TV show. No, you're right. 2002. It was over by 2004. God, that was so quick. Just one single year. We're still talking about it. All right, let's go into some slides on world building. Thank you for sharing, everybody that spoke to some of their favorite worlds. So basically, we're talking about developing detailed and plausible fictional worlds. The word realistic is not on there. Notice that, first of all. We're not trying to make things that are perfectly 100% plausible, could happen in real worlds, real space, the existing universe as we know it. Plausible is the term to be thinking here, because we can buy almost anything as far as a story is concerned. The audience has an incredibly wide sense of suspension of disbelief. It starts wider, or our lens for it starts a bit wider, but it narrows as the story goes on, or as a franchise goes on, which is why it's really important to sort of set up the key rules and principles, usually in the first half of the story before you get to the second half. We shouldn't usually be introducing brand new principles in the second half. That can lead to problems too, and fan backlash. When, for instance, later in your series, now you're like, okay, hyperspace fuel matters now. And we're like, oh, we really went to like, I think 8 movies where nobody ever even mentioned fuel that they had to use. And now it's a key plot point. What? Kind of feels like you're just adding new rules on the fly, which can make the fans feel cheated. They kind of thought they understood the world. You can't be throwing curveballs at the 11th hour. So there's some major archetypes of sci-fi or fantasy world building we might consider. I see a hand raised from Nerthus. Let me just finish this slide. I'll come call on you in just a moment. So our biggest one for sci-fi is going to be futuristic world. Takes place in our galaxy, but at some later point in the timeline. We even things where it gets pretty alien and pretty strange, like Dune or things like that. They do still have an Earth somewhere in the galaxy that is like the homeworld of the humans, and sometimes it still plays a major role, and sometimes it is like a relic that nobody cares about anymore. And in Battlestar Galactica, it's sort of a fabled homeworld we're all trying to find. But in any case, there is an Earth, and we are existing at some point in the future. Although I believe the Battlestar Galactica development is that it in fact is the ancient past, and these are like the sort of proto-humans that mingled with Neanderthals, or I don't know. We're gonna have to get Luke up to talk about how that worked out at some point. Okay, so secondary world is completely imagined galaxy with no Earth, or Earth is just so radically different that we might as well not even call it Earth at all. Sometimes there's no humans at all, but usually there's humans somehow. And then we have hidden world, where our world exists parallel to speculative elements, and they may cross over in terms of portal fantasy worlds like Narnia, where we can go back and forth, or Harry Potter, which is again sort of like portal fantasy, where we can go back and forth with the train or the subway station being that different portals that we can use to access Hogwarts land. But sometimes these stories end up taking place mostly in the secondary worlds, to the point where it might as well just be secondary world. Like we leave Earth behind so early that it just doesn't really matter. Like John Carter of Mars It starts on Earth. He's a Confederate soldier, if I remember correctly, but almost the entirety of that series takes place on Mars, or Barsoom, as it's called. And so Earth just doesn't matter. There's another one that I wanted to throw in here as well. A new challenger has approached. Borderline mystical. And this is going to be some movies or series that feature elements that, or we continually raise the question, is there something supernatural or technological going on here? But we prolong the answer for a very long time, if we ever even answer it at all. Sometimes we just don't answer. The borderline elements might be a factor of your character's altered perception of the world. Like in True Detective, you could argue that Rust Cole is sort of seeing these birds move into these weird glyphs in the air as a reflection of his mental state or his ability to make connections between things and sort of see patterns. Maybe that's what that is. The sort of angel type characters in the Max Payne movie and first game, and the kind of like mythological references to this upcoming kind of like Ragnarok kind of apocalypse that pervades the first Max Payne story. Is that a metaphor? Is that the characters being on drugs and they're kind of misinterpreting things as signs of this apocalypse? It's never really clarified at all. Although, because that feature is sort of dropped from the later games, it sort of stands out as like a weird element of the first one and the movie. They come off almost feeling like Constantine in some ways, where you're like, wait, but by the third one, we don't even reference that even once. Okay, that's my slide on borderline mystical, which is a kind of cool place to explore. And with some series being about actually trying to figure out, is it mystical or not? Like X-Files. And then some, or I think that show, is it called Dark Winds on AMC, which is kind of like taking place, I believe, in native reservations. And maybe there's aliens or maybe there's not. Maybe there's something supernatural going on, maybe there's not. The characters are trying to like find out. Or you could just always leave it ambiguous as to whether there's something supernatural or perhaps it's just metaphors. Okay, I think I saw a hand raised from Nerthus. Go ahead.
Sorry, I gotta unmute here. Yeah, mine is secondary with the supernatural element, so the renegades. Yeah, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Cool.
So, I haven't had time. I've been so busy. My life is crazy right now, so I'm back.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm back. I was up north for a couple, we call it up north here, so we're visiting relatives, but that's okay. So, today we're just restarting the sci-fi, or is it just continuing on from what was before? Just so that I'm clear.
So sci-fi was never the theme of the boot camp. The novel boot camps don't have a genre focus.
No, I didn't
Go ahead.
want to connect to the boot camp, but today we're doing the sci-fi. Is it a reboot of sci-fi or is it just continuing sci-fi?
There's not a series of sci-fi to continue or to reboot. This is a one-off
Okay.
event. Right.
Okay, it's a one. Okay, no worries. Thank you. I appreciate that. So,
No problem.
yeah,
Glad to have you back.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's look at some major elements of world building. Cultural, physical are sort of two of our biggest ones. This is where we're looking at everything from on a physical level. What would be there if there were no intelligent species present? Flora and fauna, geography, weather, cosmology or astronomy, geology, physics, microbiology, things like this. Think of the natural sciences, the earth sciences, whereas cultural are going to be the social sciences, language, religion, economy, politics, culture, philosophy, food, art, folklore, history, prejudice, education, architecture, occupation. These are all going to be things that could really only be created by intelligent species. Luke has asked the question, what do they eat? Yeah, that's going to be a physical, that's like part of the culture. It's linked to both, right? Because it has to be something from the world, unless your characters are just eating each other culturally. We're eating either plants or animals, so we're eating. So it's going to tie back to either the flora and fauna of your world, and then on top of that, it's going to have a cultural element too, as in what is allowed to be eaten, who can eat what, who can afford to eat what, who gathers what, whose job is it to get the food, how is it stored. These are all cultural elements of a physical, or the food is related to both cultural and physical concerns. Becky has a thought. Go ahead, Becky.
You just made something click in my head as to why. So, for context for other people, I know you know this, Connor. I have a murder mystery that I completely written that was set on a spaceship, and my editors, because it's for middle grade, thought the spaceship context wouldn't sell. So wanted me to change it to something else, and we collectively agreed an underwater, a futuristic underwater city would be ideal. And you just made me realize why transition felt so easy, because I'm near the end. I'm like so close to the end of this rewrite, and it's because all the culture aspects stay the same. You know, the hierarchy, the way that the politics of the system, the government, the food's changed because in space it was bug burgers. Now I'm using seed themes, but like the jobs that people have, the fact that this murder happened, or why it happened, and the fact there's a prison, and all of this, all of that's exactly the same. The thing that has changed is the physical, because instead of being a space, it's now under the sea, which is different views outside, a different feel, because space is a vacuum, whereas under the water is pressure. Different, even to the point where it's now a city, so it's tiered, rather than before it was 5 separate spaceships that sort of travel together. So that's why it feels for me like, because my story is so based on the culture of this society, physical is kind of an interesting paint of coat overlay for me. And it just, as you were saying that, it just clicked as to why it didn't. Like all these people were saying to me, "Oh, such a big change! How can you do it?" And they were getting freaked out about the fact that a publisher might ask you to change your setting. And I think that's it. They haven't asked me to change my world building. They've asked me to change my physical setting.
Right.
So that's why it didn't feel like such a big deal. So yeah.
Makes sense. I could think just culturally the biggest difference between a setting where everyone's on a spaceship or a series of spaceships and they're traveling somewhere versus we're in an underwater city and we're stationary is that one of those has the feeling of we're looking for a home and one of them is like we are home. And so that can really affect a culture
Yeah.
in terms of like what motivates people, what the major jobs are, what do they value. If it's more about we are at a place and we just need to make it work here, this is our home planet and we just need to adapt to it, that will lead to certain different like cultural ideas and like a slightly different value set. It feels a little hopeless to be on this trek, to be on a space journey where we're like we can't, the voyage or the destination is nowhere in sight. Like it's a little different
Yeah.
I guess overall sort of like cultural sentiment that the people would be feeling.
I mean, I think I managed to capture it a bit in the sense that, because it's from a child's perspective anyway. So
Right.
they're kind of, all the politics is seen from a more innocent view of a child, you know. But they're, before they were the last of humanity traveling to their new world, they would never be the ones that would set foot on it. In this one, they're what remains of humanity waiting for all of the radiation on the Earth to subside, but they're never going to be the ones that will go back to the surface. So it still has that kind of with the in between generation just waiting.
Yeah.
But I did find that some of Pandora's, who one of my characters, you're right, some of her thoughts and feelings disappeared in this draft because it wasn't relevant. It was just, she's just in a city under the water. Like, you know, it didn't have the same, it didn't make as much sense for her to have the same emotional hatred of where she's living and love of old Earth. She still has it, but it's not as strong.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So if we're to break this a little further, we have our physical, our social, and then the third and fourth layers on top of that are tech/mystical, which is going to be pertaining to your sci-fi or fantasy premise, meaning a speculative element that is going to include either supernatural, meaning things that are not possible now and never will be possible, or technological, meaning that at least there is some kind of maybe unlikely, but still technically possible way this could at some point happen. This could perhaps exist. Local is going to be the last layer on top of that, and that's going to be more like world building around the immediate area, like thinking of the creaky stair, or within the house. If your whole story takes place within one house, then we're going to want to build out the different rooms and what does the wallpaper and all the different rooms and the temperature between all the different rooms feel like. If your whole story takes place in a cul-de-sac, then we're going to want to build out the potholes on the street and like the stuff on the sidewalk and what's in the different lawns. So really think of what actual scope does my story take place in, and how can I build out local elements that will make sense just for the people that live there and spend all their time there. We generally want to understand the events of the story enough, or the world building principles enough, by 40 to 50% of the book. So by that point, we know at least the major rules. There can be small things introduced after that, but nothing that is going to be a key plot point. Last time we ran a class sort of like this, we looked at Florida, and we were just asking, first of all, let's just do world building Florida as if it's some alien planet. And we were thinking of all the things that make Florida stand out from the rest of the country. You got a lot of transplants and retirees there. It's sort of different from Deep South culture. You could say, well, Texas and Florida are both Deep South, right? Isn't it the same culture? But they're like 900 miles apart at the like closest points. So no, not at all. They're very different culturally. The Florida man thing, the Scientology, the taxes, the economy, like people came up with a bunch of good ideas there for what makes Florida culturally different from the rest of the US. I thought let's take a quick swing at one more round. Let's do New York City this time. You can just list stuff off in the chat. What are some things that make New York City culturally different from the rest of the US?
People walk fast and talk loud.
Walk fast and talk loud. There we go. So
How's that any different to London, though?
well,
I'm
I
just
think
saying, like,
that.
I've been,
Go ahead.
I lived in both London and New York, and there are differences. Like New York is very cross sections of the streets, so there's far more of a directness into where you're walking. You know exactly where you're going. It's far more of that race that people talk about because of the grid structure. I put rats. There's lots of rats, and I know they're in every city, but my God, I have not seen as many as I saw in New York.
Fair number of rats is true. All right, direct social conditioning. So from everything from people's movement to communication styles. What else?
Manhattan is a fairly small island.
Okay.
Not all of New York City, but Manhattan itself, right? So the fact that it's an entire island just covered in city,
It's compact. All right.
they use that really well. Stuff like Escape from New York and that kind of thing.
Right, right. Yeah, there's a big sprawl around it, but like NYC itself, those little islands, it's pretty dense. I'm seeing other comments in the chat as well. Wall Street. So, okay, Central Park. So yeah, we have Wall Street. We have memorable, iconic natural preserved nature, such as Central Park. We have Wall Street and finance culture.
I mean, we'll just include all the boroughs
Okay, distinct.
because they're
boroughs.
all distinctly culturally stratified. Yeah.
From my point of view as a British person, tourism to New York feels different to say Florida or California. I feel like a lot of Europeans go to Florida or California for a big holiday. They go to New York for a weekend, like a long weekend. New York for lots of people like doing it for New Year's, things like that. It's more of a short stay type holiday, not like Florida that's a bigger kind of stay.
Sure, sure. Broadway too. I think a lot of people like to visit for a couple days for Broadway. Anything else?
I genuinely like to think, and a lot of people say this, that New York is like London's twin. Like it's different, but it also has a lot of the similar culture of the finance culture, the Broadway, but also things like there's a joke in Men in Black where they're fighting an alien on the subway and no one's paying any attention. And that's exactly the kind of thing you get in London as well. So to me, it's like it's got that similar kind of, feel to itself, especially with the subway, as you call it. in the underground where no one just pays attention to anything.
Yeah, it's kind of a jaded population, especially like post 9/11. You could say New Yorkers have this kind of like toughness to them, which a resilience to them, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
They're used to, they're I'm not we, I'm not a New Yorker, but they're very used to seeing crazy stuff on the street all the time. You sort of just keep walking and shrug it off.
It's the same as in London. It's
Yeah,
like,
big cities, I mean
yeah, and I don't-
capital type cities are often like that, aren't they?
they are, but I think there's something really special about New York that wasn't the same as other cities I've been in. There was just something about, and it's quite diverse. I mean, a lot of cities are diverse, but you can like. I think there was another joke in Resident Alien where he ends up in New York and he's not in his human form. He takes some drugs and he looks like an alien. And again, no one batters an eyelid. Like you get people just dressed up in the weirdest stuff.
Yeah, we're used to seeing just it's millions of people packed in one small space, and so the weirdness rises to the surface quite quickly. Thank you for these ideas. So I saw more in the chat. Great, lots of great ideas there from everybody. We won't spend most of our time today on the mundane stuff though. This was sort of just an example to showcase how we can think of world building on that local level, and how even within your own country, there's going to be really different places that you can visit in your story that are going to have different stuff that can perhaps interact with your sci-fi or fantasy elements, especially if you're using a hidden world kind of paradigm for your story. Then every major city you go to becomes like its own sort of fantasy and sci-fi world building in addition to just the local world building. Like thinking of World of Darkness role-playing game, which we've talked about a little bit before. Almost every chronicle is presented as like they're usually themed around a specific city. It'll be called like Chicago by night, London by night, Paris by night, something like that. And that tells us that it's going to be diving into the sort of supernatural backstory and underbelly of that particular city. So you can look at each city as having its own hidden history for your story as well. Species. Last time we talked about Kaminoans from Star Wars, which are these really tall, skinny, kind of almost eel people from Star Wars that are these reclusive and rare creatures that have created the clone army. This time I wanted to talk about Genasi from Forgotten Realms. And I'll think of some implications of what this species what their roles could be, what challenges they could face, what tools they would have access to face other problems, what stories might be able to spring from these ideas. So let's start with the description of who are the Genasi. Who's a Forgotten Realms person here? Who knows D&D stuff really well? I know there's at least one.
I know D&D stuff, but I'm not really familiar with this race.
Genasi are part genie.
Yes.
And they represent different elements: air, earth, water, that sort of thing. And so their innate magical abilities also reflect, or their innate magical talentness, or whatever it is, reflects the element under which they're representative, which is why they're all quite different.
Yes, very good. Okay, so Genasi are part genie people, and since genies are in D&D world connected with the four elements, the four, I guess, Aristotelian elements rather than the Chinese elements, which are a little bit different and include metal and wood. The four Aristotelian elements, I think that's how you say it, are going to be earth, air, fire, water. I think we're all very used to magic systems that utilize these four elements, especially if you play a lot of video games or watch anime, then certainly you have seen at least one example of this. I think that there's a lot to be done with Genasi just because of there's a lot of nuance to them. First of all, no two of them are ever alike in appearance, which is kind of cool. And their elemental affinity manifests in many different ways. For some of them, they may not even have hair at all. They just have fire on their head. Or they might have like a cloud of mist and fog that sort of like attaches to their head that sort of looks like hair. So they'll be kind of like using elemental aspects to stand in for various human parts. Their personality also reflects their core element too. Fire Genasi might have a hot temper. The Earth Genasi might take life slowly and carefully, or something like this. I think there's a couple different ways you can interpret these, though, which is always is nice too, right? Like let's think of a water genasi. We could think of that character as being ice cold and calculating and kind of cruel. How else could we interpret a character that's an ice genasi, though, personality-wise?
Well, ice or water, because if you go with water, right? Water has multiple forms. It has steam, it has ice, it has its fluid state, and in its fluid state, it kind of flows into everything. You know, it has its meandering qualities and its calm, tranquil qualities in its fluid state, but it also has tsunami. It has storm. It has waves. So it has the potential for both, the placid or the invasive, that which fills everything. It also has relentlessness, right? The water eventually wears the rock away.
Great. Yeah. So you could have two water genasi, one of which is this ice cold calculating kind of spy, let's imagine. And then you might have another one that's a stoner, and they're just chill and they go with the flow. So yeah, you can interpret those in very different ways. Fire is kind of tricky to interpret as more like, uh, calm or even tempered, but you could find a way to do it. Like a lava flow is sort of slow and more pondering, right?
Or you could have, the idea that fire can be both destructive and productive. And so one person is concerned with the destruction element of fire, and another, maybe is a blacksmith who, can create his own heat and shape, metal, and use his, and use his fire to dig up clay from a stream and create, pottery directly and that kind of thing.
That could be cool. Yeah, Dakota mentions a campfire could work, or maybe if we imagine kind of a half warforged fire genasi, maybe they're like a walking wood stove robot, and people gather around them in the cold, and they're actually like a force of comfort and healing in the world rather than a force of destruction. You come up, they give you a stick with a marshmallow on it, like they have a magical ability to create marshmallows, things like that. You could interpret it that way too. So, what are some physical or social ramifications of these effects? I have a couple samples on the board. These are just off the top of my head. First of all, Karlach from Baldur's Gate 3 is not a genasi. I think she's a devil, actually, but this could be the same effect, right? You're so hot, you can't touch anyone because you would just burn or kill them. And so, or maybe you can only touch other fire based creatures. And as a result, you can't socially or romantically get close to anyone. And so you build certain walls and you become a much more guarded person, right? Or what about this one I thought of? Earth genasi. You make plants grow everywhere that you touch, or anything that you touch. Any plants that you touch begin to grow. Therefore, you can't eat plants because they would grow throughout your whole body. So you can only eat meat. And so we have an earth, like a green skin kind of nature earth genasi that can only kill and eat living creatures. What else comes to mind?
That's a
Go ahead.
strange take on the "don't swallow the watermelon seeds; it'll grow in your stomach" trope.
Yeah, they actually would go all they burst out of your ears and your mouth and stuff when you as soon as you ate one. So what else comes to mind? Let's think of some both physical and the social ramifications that would stem from those physical changes.
Maybe if you're an air genasi, you are more prone to suffocation and pollution, and you need constant ventilation or like moving air, so that they actually design architecture to like they do in like dry climates where they keep airflow like moving through the building and stuff.
Okay, so in that world, I might go ahead.
Oops,
Say
sorry.
it again.
Or like an earth genasi who can't cast unless they're in contact with the earth or the ground in some way. Put a pair of rubber boots on them and effectively neutralize their magic.
Okay, so the social effect would be they never wear shoes, I suppose, or they don't like going inside.
Right, you would wear shoes. You would have to be touching the earth in order to if you were inside, you'd have to go outside in order to cast.
Right. So socially, they may have a kind of a either a fear or a taboo against going into buildings if it means that it's going to make us vulnerable if we go in there. So perhaps that could lead to certain customs, like it's a really big deal if an Earth genasi goes into your house because that means they trust you more than anyone in the world. That means they don't have power while they're in your space, right?
Yeah, unless you've got an earth in the floor,
Right.
depending on what culture you live in.
Or maybe, yeah, in your own house, you're like, I have a really accessible zone where I have a sort of a couch that has a spot that there's like earth just there for my Earth Genasi friend when he comes over.
A planter.
I have a big pot of soil for him to sit in. That's funny. What else? Let's hear some more ideas for the physical changes and then the ramifications socially that those changes would create.
I could easily see a, a group of these beings being enslaved to sort of make plants grow or to do whatever elemental thing you can think of.
Sure, that's in a dark world, we could see the Earth Genasis have been enslaved to make the farms grow. In a lighter take, we could say that's a good job that they could have, right? They're highly paid for their expertise in going from farm to farm and fixing everyone's harvest. Or, having an ocean Genasi on your ship would be a game changer, right? Like if you don't have one, you're pretty much dead in the water compared to all the ships that do.
Just imagining them tied to the front of the ship like those I don't know what they're called, but like there'll be like a mermaid or something up there.
Masthead? Is that what that's called?
I think that's what that's called.
Yeah. On the keel, or maybe keelhead. I think it's masthead. Good ideas there. I think we've heard some good ideas for Earth.
Well,
and go ahead.
You also got the stone shaping element, right? They could be highly prized masons.
Sure, yeah. If they
Right.
are able to mold stone like clay, then they can make renovations to your castle pretty easy. They can be, renowned as architects or craftsmen.
Or sculptors.
Yeah.
That could
Sculptors.
lead to social ramifications where sort of like they're making idols for people for money, but they don't actually believe in the religion or something. That's an interesting dynamic.
Would be cool. It probably also would lead to Stone Genasi being known as the artists of all of these because they're the only ones whose powers make something permanent. Because anything you make out of ice isn't going to last. Fire can't create anything permanent either, except like you could maybe superheat stuff. I
You
suppose, but
could,
like you could. There's ways you can use fire to make permanent things, but fire doesn't inherently create permanent things the way that stone is inherently
right.
permanent.
That would be a great character, like an artisan that sculpts with fire, or they engrave, or I don't know. There's all kinds of things you could do. Metalworking, we talked about that.
Sure, charcoal art, perhaps.
Yeah,
I have a degree in ceramics glass, and we often referred to that as playing with fire.
Yeah. I'm sure that Fire Genasi could do amazing glasswork. Okay, some good ideas there. I have we don't have to do all of these if our time we actually have a good amount of time. So at least for 10 minutes, let's take a few swings at these. This is kind of just rapid fire world building exercise on the implications of different weird stuff. These are weird rules that might apply to a world. And I want to think of what would this maybe tell the audience about the world, or if you were the audience, what would you start to maybe think is the rationale for that? What roads would this lead us down? And then we could use that to build out the rest of the world from just this one fact about it. So I'm going to call a couple of these and I have 2 pages of them. We don't have to do every one. And of course, coming up right after this, we will want to discuss your guys' story worlds. So I'd be getting your materials ready if you have something that you want to share, if it's a sketchbook or a one sheet or an outline or something like that, or maybe it's just a few sentences or a few pictures or something to share for building and developing your story's setting. If you're trying to work on that, today is a day you can get feedback on that if you want to, and just get some of that work done. Let's start with this though, so while everyone's getting their materials ready. So let's just start with blood. Okay, Luke already mentions he's done blood as currency before. Okay, if the society uses blood as currency, that Big Mac will be 2.5 milliliters. What does that tell us about the world? What are some of these implications?
that it's ruled by vampires.
That seems like the most obvious. Yeah, that's where many minds might go. Go ahead.
Completely different route. I went a completely different route. He said we're ruled by vampires. I went, it's a world that is, I am left wing, so far left wing that it expects everyone to donate blood to people who need it. So it's like, that's how you pay for things because you're donating blood. Like, I
Oh,
thought I'd put it that way.
it would just be a social welfare system that's enforced by making it the foundation of the currency.
Yeah, exactly.
I could see that if it were a
And
world where that were the
another-
case. One second, let me just stick with this one
Right.
for just a sec. I'll call you. So a world in which we have a social welfare system that is enforced at the most basic level of it is the currency you need for everything. That would probably tell me that that government went through a severe crisis, or that that country went through some kind of crisis where blood became really rare and hard to get, and we needed a lot of it. And this became the most expedient way towards getting what we need to allow the population to survive. So if that were the case, this would, first of all, to me, sound like more of a temporary measure. Like it would be a little unusual for this to keep going past that point of crisis, just because it's so distasteful to people, unless it were some sort of continuing crisis. Like, was there some sort of major pathogen that went through the population or something like that? I'm not sure. Becky, what else do you think could be the world in which that would come to pass?
I mean, I like that idea, some kind of pathogen. Yeah, I mean, or it could be some kind of, I mean, going really dark. They've discovered a way to, there were those people in the olden times that used to like drinking, like washing maidens' blood to keep them young. But
Sure.
if they've actually found a way to use blood to keep people immortal, so the very rich don't want money. Money's useless now. Gold is useless now. Poor people's blood is the most important thing because it keeps the rich young and youthful like forever.
Yeah, could work. It's a little unusual for a currency system to require the currency to be consumed to use it. But then again, if it is constantly being produced too, then it might be able to balance out as long as your population remains stable.
Yeah.
I heard Megan. Go ahead, Megan.
Oh, all good. I'm sorry to interrupt, by the way. I
No problem.
apologize. I was also leaning towards the pathogen thing, where the blood and maybe even particularly the blood of, say, those who are immune becomes suddenly valuable.
Oh, special
And
blood.
that is the blood. It's not necessarily everyone's blood, but the blood of the immune.
Oh
And
God.
that everybody seeks it to up their immune system so that the pathogen doesn't kill them.
Wow, that's super scary to think that it's just some people that their blood. Yeah, no kidding. That would be terrible to be a person with actual usable blood in that world, because now everyone wants it, and you're essentially a money dispenser if someone just takes your blood. I could see that.
So that was my thought.
Thank you for that. The thing that comes to mind for me as well is maybe there was some sort of genetic issue that spread through the population or due to fallout or something like that has resulted in widespread hemophilia. Like people bleed a lot worse in this world, and so they just need blood transfusions more, perhaps. I would say the foundation of your currency system.
It is
Go
that's, oh, sorry. It's whatever it is that's unique about that person's blood. I mean, they've got this guy, they're trying to figure out why he attracts sea life, and they think it's something in his blood that's doing it. It's just weird.
Right, yeah, so different blood could have different properties that might have different effects. That's true.
Different blood types affect whether or not you get, and also diets and things can affect how many mosquitoes bite you. I met a guy who was studying mosquitoes and why they bite certain people more than others, believe it or not.
Oh, I guess they can smell it.
Strange thing. Right. So, I mean, imagine if you've got the blood type that no mosquitoes will ever bite, that'd be worth something.
Right. Or it's a world where your mosquitoes are 10 feet tall, in which case now it becomes more relevant.
Got a weird idea.
Go
What
ahead.
if there are skeletons or some kind of beings that lack blood and they're in some kind of like flesh dimension where they have to like harvest the blood from like massive veins or something? It's like almost like oil.
Oh, okay. And each one needs to, are they trying to make bodies for themselves individually?
I don't know, maybe it can it's like life force. Maybe it can like sustain them or something. I don't know. I just the image of bloodless beings like harvesting blood from a flesh dimension sounds like an interesting setting.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense if they're bloodless beings and maybe they don't need it. It would make a little more sense to use it for trade in that world too. If you have like the skeleton nation and then they live near the human nation. Well, and if the blood veins happen to travel through their
Yeah.
territory, you could see them harvesting it. You could see them scouring the
human-
battlefields. Go ahead.
The humans need blood to irrigate their flesh crops or something, so the
Yeah,
skeletons could like use it as a trading commodity.
true. Or if we have a vampire nation, a skeleton nation, and a human nation, and the skeleton
There you
nation,
go.
if they sort of act as the go-between between the two, because the vampires aren't going to attack them, they could almost be like the Switzerland between the two. I wonder if maybe they would sort of use blood as their currency to deal with the vampires. Could be cool. Let's do a new one. I like this. You start with a finite amount of money, and you can't get more. It only goes down.
So like in time.
Yeah, I guess, but not actually diminishing at a constant rate. It's just you have however much you have. Let's say when every single person gets the same amount, every person starts with 100,000 space bucks, and you can't get more space bucks. So I guess when you
That's
buy
fun.
something, they're just deleted.
I guess the morals of this society would be extremely against like gambling and splurging and
Yeah.
living for today. It would all be about planning for the future and all be about being responsible and frugal.
And social connections would be key because you don't want to be paying for your own stuff.
Sure.
I think there would be an interesting, I don't know, maybe it's because my book's about politics, but I'm really getting into politics at the moment. I think there would be an interesting theme within this, in that the moment we have wealth inequality, right? So in this world, this feels like it'd be fair. Everyone starts with the same amount of money. Wouldn't that be fair? But then you have someone who is born with a disability, or you have someone who is born with the inability to eat certain food, and so the food that they have to eat is worth more money, and therefore they get through it quicker. And then you get the question of, is it fair to give everyone the same? Which is that comment on society, which is, the whole equality versus equity versus, like, you one is giving everyone the same, and there's an image with the people at fence, right? And one is privilege, where fence and someone's got a ladder so they can look over. Then there's equality, where they give everyone a ladder, but one person's shorter, so they still can't see over the fence. And then there's equity, where the people have the right size ladder for what they need. And then there's that kind of, there you go. And so that would be the topic of this, is that everyone's equal, but is it fair?
Can I jump in? I want to take this to its logical conclusion. So if this is almost like zero sum economics, like, but it's not. We can actually get more money if we get more people. So I think we would have billionaires actually breeding dumb idiots so that they can steal their money.
Yeah, okay. So this would sort of be like, well, and I guess there would be the additional question of, can you use your kids' money? Like, do you have ownership of your child's money, or do they only get it when they turn 18 or something like that? Or can they
Well,
only access it? Go ahead.
let's say they can access it when they're 18 and now they're like legally able to enter into contracts. There would
Right.
be like slave prisons for people just being bred for the purpose of turning 18 and giving all their money to Jeff Bezos or somebody.
Sure.
But
Or-
that,
go
that
ahead.
assumes an exchange of money rather than a constant withdrawal of money, where the money actually simply goes into a nothing, right? It's a physical sum on a computer screen, and you don't actually give it to someone; it just is erased. And in that case, you'll end up with a completely entropic society that has no motivation to do anything other than hopefully make their money last until their death. There's no motivation to actually go out and do anything.
But what's to stop
But
me
we already live in that
from-
world.
Wait, what's to
Go
stop
ahead, Becky.
me, Megan, from threatening you that I'm going to kill you if you don't spend your money on buying me car, the money disappears, but I get that car even though you're the one that's
Oh,
spent the
yeah,
money.
but there's nothing to stop that, but that would definitely be entropic in terms of how societies function. It would not be
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree that there could be that. But it would be sort of, a different sort, and then yeah, it's interesting because, there's that question of where does the money go? Does it go the way Luke suggests, or does it just merely disappear poof into the
There would still be mathematics people who would find a way to abuse the system. I mean, that basically is what economics is. The reason you've got billionaires, they've got mathematician taxation people who tell them where to save all their money and avoid putting it all back in the system. You'd still have that.
Let's ask the question, why would a society be like this? What would have led to this?
Again, I think probably good intentions. It's like the end of capitalism. Capitalism has gotten to the point where I mean we're almost nearly there, but it's take the capitalism to the extreme of the billionaires or the trillionaires who have more money than a country, and then the poor. Like you say, we are Nerthus. We're not. There are still people who are middle class. They're getting less. There are people who are middle class who are comfortable. Take it to the extreme. There are only trillionaires or poor people who are homeless, right? Who can't even afford rent because it's so much. End of capitalism. It doesn't work anymore. Government has to do something. And some countries did actually try. I mean, it's not you get a certain amount of money, but some countries did try a universal scheme of every single person getting
universal income.
a basic universal income that covered the cost of rent and everything as a trial. All that did, because we're in a capitalist, by the way, was just inflation, and everything then cost more, so it didn't work. It would only work in a post-capitalist society. That would be why it would be post-capitalism. Sorry, Luke wants to say something.
Go ahead.
If the question was how did the world end up this way, it could just be that extreme idea of like universal basic income or something. Like let's say like an economics large language model takes over the planet
Yep.
and institutes its final economic solution where everybody gets this amount of money, everything's price fixed, rent frozen, and this is the system we're going to live in now.
Yeah,
we're gonna do this for 100 years, so have fun.
You get all your universal basic income at once as a lump sum rather than throughout your life.
Sure.
Enforced by your robot overlords.
Yeah.
Naturally.
I
All right,
mean,
I've got
it's
a
simpler
bunch.
than it's simpler than paying people out when they're old and dealing with inflation and
Yeah,
all this stuff.
might be better than Social Security. So I've got a bunch more to choose from. I think I want to maybe just list them off, and if anybody wants to pick one to talk about, then we can go into maybe one or two more. Then we'll open to your guys' projects for our last 40 minutes. Okay, so and I just came up with these before class. I haven't like dived really deep into the potential implications. That's what the class is for. So to begin with, I came up with a couple social systems. One, getting dire medical help is risky because if the doctor thinks they can't save you, they will kill you on the spot. It's illegal to see the king or his ministers, and even portraying or describing them is forbidden. You can't even talk about what they look like. Every citizen gets one free crime in their lifetime. No consequences, but it's only one crime of any scale. Religion. Religions compete to offer the biggest incentives for new members. $1 million, a free house, but despite this, they're unpopular and they're struggling to gain traction. Ecosystem. Anytime somebody finds a bug in their house, they hit an alarm and they call in a hazmat team. Or rules. Everyone shares a language, but it's considered heinously rude to speak out loud. Okay. What do you guys think? Let's pick one.
Could you scroll back a page?
Oh, come on, yeah.
I had ideas for the dire medical help. Are we
Okay.
just picking one?
Yeah,
I'll let
pick
other
whichever one.
people. But
Okay. Sure, okay, we can come back to you. Anybody else want to call one up that caught their interest?
Yeah, I was interested in the language one.
All right. Everyone shares a language, but it's rude, heinously rude to speak out loud. Why the heck would that be, and what are the implications?
Again, this just feels like British society gone to extreme. Um, like, yeah, it's this thing where we don't say what we mean, it's all sort of undertones. So I just feel like it would be, especially go back to Victorian, like Victorian era, there was so many rules about etiquette. I could see this being kind of almost like a steampunk-esque world where um it's all about body language and it's all following these rules and it's just like this extreme. I don't think it necessarily be worldwide. I think it would be like within the elite or within a particular group. But yeah, that speaking out loud is just rude. And then I could imagine, as you know, I can imagine being a sci-fi, like an episode of Star Trek, where people do the faux pas and they meet this new civilization and end up getting into trouble because they're deemed as being rude because they do this. Like I could just see it sort of like I see it being a bit of a funny. Oh yeah, they did one that was eating. They did one with that, but it was eating in front of people was considered heinously rude. But yeah, I could see this being like a extreme Victorian like culture type thing.
Okay, so I
I
guess
have an
let's.
idea for this one.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Luke.
What if it is a society of people that know like the primordial like words of creation or destruction or something? It's sort of like if you speak this language, you'll annihilate the universe, but they all share this language.
Oh, okay, so there's either a religious belief around the implications of language or an actual demonstrable magical effect of speaking aloud.
Yeah, it could be that they're like a post-apocalyptic sort of civilization, maybe like they live in a universe that was created after the old one was destroyed by these words. So now they're all sort of like have taken a vow of silence.
Sure, sure. Yeah, there's some magic systems that utilize the words themselves are like the source of the power. Like in Sabriel in the Old Kingdom, when people cast a powerful enough spell, it chars their throat and makes smoke boil out of their mouth and nose as they say the words themselves.
It's a superhero. Well, it's not really a superhero. Was it Deadbolt? Black Bolt, who can't speak because if he speaks, it lets out such force that it literally he killed his own parents because of it. And basically, yeah, he just can't speak. So he has to communicate in other ways. It's an interesting concept.
Okay, so it could be a world in which maybe that is more common, like 1 in 10 people can do that. So therefore, even if that's not the case for you, it's considered rude to speak out loud because that cultural fear might just persist around that idea.
It's a world filled with extreme autistics with severe sensory issues. So speaking out loud is just really painful.
Sure, sure. It may be a species that have really sensitive ears as well. They have those, big oversized cups in their ears, or maybe they just they look like people, but the sounds affect them more for whatever reason. Go ahead.
Or allowed to whisper. Like, you can talk, you're allowed to whisper, but nothing big, nothing louder than a whisper. And if someone new comes into this world, and it's really hard for them, especially if
Sure.
like from a culture that's used to being louder.
I've got one. What if they're a telepathic race and they speak a language telepathically? It's a spoken language, but like centuries ago they stopped speaking and it became taboo to actually speak the words aloud.
Yeah, because if you speak aloud, it would sort of you might be able to see that as uh like maybe it might be a sign that your telepathy is not working, or it might have that kind of implication of weakness. Like it portrays a certain vulnerability from you, like there's something off about my telepathy, so I have to speak this way. That might be the connection that is drawn there.
Sure.
Or what if the telepathy is something that's like not natural to them, but an implanted thing, right? And those who can't have that implant are considered lesser. And, you know, it would be heinously rude to be around one because look, they can't even speak telepathically.
Yeah,
They can't even afford to do that.
sure. So as a marker of social stratification, the higher class is the ones that are able to telepathically communicate. I could see that. Any more ideas on rude to speak a loud world, or would someone like to pick a new idea? Let's do one more.
How about ecosystem?
Okay.
Perhaps there's a bug that releases it be toxic. They call it the hazmat. Just a
Okay.
bug.
So there's a particular type of bug that is known as being especially deadly, and this could be the kind of world where maybe it's pretty new to them, so they can't identify that bug very well yet, or there's a risk that maybe it looks like lots of other types of bugs, so there's a chance that any bug you see could be that one. Go ahead, Luke.
This is one of my old ideas. The idea that people left Earth not to explore space, but to escape bugs. And the moment we find bugs on our moon colony is when we have to hit red alert because, you know, we thought we had won the war against insects, but no, here they are on the moon or whatever.
Any fans of For All Mankind in the chat?
Oh, does that happen?
Something not exactly like that, but there's an ant farm they have on a moon base, and they end up smashing
Oh
it
no.
by accident. And then that's in like season 2. And then for the next 2 seasons, every once in a while, characters are just finding ants randomly in their moon bases, like years down the line.
It's funny.
Even one of them comes back to Earth and finds one like wedged in his collar. All right, some fun ideas there. Thank you for everyone who tried the activities today. Let's open the floor to anybody that wants to get into their story world they're developing for their book that's upcoming, or maybe a book that you're already working on.
I'm
Go ahead.
just gonna say I'm gonna go now because I'm like so close to getting this finished. So,
Okay.
thank you. That was fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining. We'll see you next time. Okay,
I have a
so
quick
go
one.
ahead.
In my Weird West, I have a group of elvish tribes, and I'm calling them tribals. Wondering if there's a better word for that.
I think there probably is.
Uh,
Especially because unless, well, okay, so let's ask the question, how much do you want to talk about real world racial allegories? Like, because that just is a term that has
yeah,
been used in the past, especially
it
even
is.
watching the movie RRR, which is set in colonial India in the 1920s. They call the anyone that's not from the big cities, like the westernized big cities, they call them tribals. So that term has been used directly before to mean the same thing. Do you want that, or do you want to lean away from that?
Well, I mean, it is Weird West, so I'm using all the tropes of the Wild West genre with a twist, and one of the big ones is American Indians or Native Americans,
Yep.
and you know, natives. And there's lots of pejorative terms that my characters might call these people, but I'm wondering what the sort of socially accepted term might be.
Socially
Tribals
accepted.
just seems really generic.
By who? By us or by them?
By oh, I know what they call themselves, but it's more what the other races refer to them.
Oh,
Yeah, natives, I guess, could work, but it's not quite specific about because like natives could mean other races too. These are like a particular race of elves. Um, anyway,
oh,
sorry, I
it's just
interrupted.
one race of elves they have an issue with, or that they would refer to with a pejorative term.
Um, for the most, so the main, largest population races are dwarves, elves, and humans, and they all sort of united culturally to end this world-ending threat hundreds of years ago. So there's still some like cultural overlap. Um, but uh the ash skin, they're kind of like Ashlanders from Morrowind or something is how I'm imagining them. Um, I don't know if that's helpful. I forgot what the original question was.
I think we're still on what to call them. I don't know Morrowind, so I don't know Ashlanders. But so are they physically different from the other species in some way?
Yes, their ears point backwards or like horizontal instead of vertical. They have like dark ashy skin. Um, and they're like culturally um I don't know what the word, they're more like the native tribes culturally than like the European steam technology kind of people.
Mm-hmm. So but you have elves as part of the sort of more westernized races too, is that right? Or even the colonizer type
Yeah,
races?
there's some colonizer elves. There's particularly like the high golden type elf, the Saracen elves are they're they're not that big of a part of the setting, but they're like pretty evil in my book. They're pretty colonizery and supremacist.
Okay, but so if that's the case, then they would probably be pretty aware of the fact that a lot of people would lump them in with the what they would consider to be the savage elves as well. So what they might do is they would focus on those physical differences. You know, call them the ash skin, call them the knife ears, or something like that. That would sort of like really clearly mark a physical difference to be like, oh, we're not like them. We're not ash skins. We're elves. You know what I mean? Like they would have a sort of like point of physical distinction that everyone could see.
Ashskins is pretty good. Or I don't know.
Something with ash. I feel like there might be if that's like a really clear physical
But
distinction.
maybe there's another word for that, like
Yeah, cinder. So it's something
thunder,
cinder
cold.
folk. Yeah, maybe there's something there.
Um, but yeah, what would the sort of like academic clinical term be for a bunch of uh, tribes and nations and I don't know. There's all these little microcultures. Like, what would they just lump them all under? Like, Indians would is what they would lump them under academically in the 1800s.
They might just call them all
In
like Fae
America.
or something like that. Then Fae, or they might call them all. They might just call them all elves, like pejoratively. Even like any race that's not like the mainstream ones might just be elves, or like what are they called? Small folk, isn't that what they or the wee folk, or they might just use a sort of broader term for like elves, fairies, and just like magical creatures like that.
Something folk sounds pretty good.
Okay,
Something folk.
getting
Ash
closer
folk.
then. Yeah, ash folk, cinder folk, smoke folk, smoke folk. Definitely not that one.
Folk. Sit folk is kind of hard to say. Uh, but I like the way it looks. I don't know. Well, I'm spending too much time on this. It's just a simple
That's okay. Maybe we'll
question.
put
I
the
know. I
yeah. We'll say if anyone has ideas, list them in the chat, and then you can do that for the rest of
Yeah,
the class.
appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
I'll figure it out one day.
Sometimes also those names are or pejorative, especially pejorative or slur type names are based on the habits or practices of those other species. So call them like, bone eaters or whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is that
Bone
they
eaters.
do.
All right.
Like find what they do that seems distasteful to your in group. Okay, thank you for that. This is really the format for the rest of the class. I don't have more activities. These are just like other slides that we could look at, but I'd rather spend the time with your guys' projects, solving issues, building out things that need to be fleshed out, or problems that need to be solved, or questions that need to be answered. Is anybody else working on world building for their own story that we might be able to work on? Go ahead.
I am. Hello.
Hi.
I posted a sketchbook in the chat here. I'm
Okay.
looking for specific, or rather more limitations or costs of a magic system. So if you scroll down,
Pure
it'll be
black.
down here. Oh no. Pourquoi? Why is it blank?
I don't know. That's happened a few
It
times.
shouldn't be.
Uh,
Yeah,
let
that's
me
weird.
try a different browser, I guess.
Let's say they're not, shouldn't be. But
Yeah, one second. Okay, I'll have to swap the scene
yeah, all good.
to a different window. That's it. Okay. All right. So take us through the basics.
Sure. So magic system essentially revolves around ley lines, which is basically connections in the ground, which is the source of magic. There are vertexes, which are essentially connection points. Those are kind of like wells. So that's kind of where a lot of people tend to kind of pull magic from specifically. So it's almost like a big storage space. And then tethers are kind of a more localized version of that, where it's almost like if you have a personal one. So there's the public one, which is what a vertex is. And then there is a tether, which is this is my personal stash. I I specifically can use a tether to connect to ley line to use magic. So that's kind of how I'm differentiating the kind of all of that. Um, in terms of the specific limitations I have so far, must have connection to the earth at somehow. Um, it requires an incredible amount of energy on your part, and you also have to have unbroken concentration. In other words, you can't have ADHD.
Okay.
You have to be very, very focused. And if you lose focus, you start over, and if in whatever energy you've lost, you lost. There is no, oh, let me accumulate all this back. No, you lost it. You have to essentially recharge. You're basically a battery. Um, you have to lock into the ley line itself, or it has to connect to you. You can't just randomly just do magic anywhere. It has to be near a ley line. The ley lines are not everywhere. They're only in specific places and only in certain areas and things like that. It's not just all throughout the world. It's almost like a cave system, basically. It's kind of how I'm thinking, or underground rivers, something like that, right? Where you can't just randomly do magic in random places. You have to be in specific spots. This is kind of where, like, so that's kind of some of the limitations I'm thinking of. In terms of like the cost of magic, whenever somebody uses it, there is a physical cost. Not only is it draining the, you have just energy and things like that, it could also be, body deterioration. And that's kind of what I really need help with is what kind of costs of magic beyond just, oh, you're going to be really tired or really weak, or you're going to fall down and fall, something like that. Could I possibly work with? That would be kind of interesting to play with. I do have schools of thought too. So there's typically four. There's the elemental stuff, which is, the earth, air, fire, water, but also metals. There's illusionary, which is astral projection, basically anything celestial, so like mini stars, things that involve like space timey-wimey stuff. And also like specter magic. So this is invisibility, teleportation, anything involving, like shadow manipulation, things like that. And then audio, which is more like a kind of like a niche one. Like that one's a little bit more rare, but basically it is. I'm able to not only it's kind of it's super hearing, but it's also I can hear like if you have written something down, right? Like say if I were reading the Bible, for instance, and I was reading the book of Acts, I would be able to hear Paul's voice reading the book, like as I'm reading the book of Acts. It wouldn't be like a random narrator, it would actually be what Paul sounded like, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then medical, so healing. And that's kind of the schools of thought besides defense. Because I think defense is kind of its own thing that I haven't fleshed out yet, but I'm really focusing in on what are the costs of these things. I know that you can't, one thing I do want to do to kind of set a hard limitation on is you can't, you have to sort of wait You can't exactly do magic all the time. You're not, this isn't like D&D where you can just do fireball, fireball, fireball all the time. Like you gotta like wait a minute to do it. And yep.
Well, why? Why do we have to wait?
Why do you have to wait? Because it requires a lot of energy to do it, and you can only really use it like once because it takes an incredible amount of energy to do, kind of like how you have potential energy, right? And then you use kinetic energy, right? It uses every spell that you use uses a lot of potential and kinetic energy at the same time. So you have to build all of that up again. So that's why you have to wait. It doesn't matter what spell it is, you have to wait.
So do you like pass out after you cast a spell?
Yes, basically.
Oh,
Yeah. So you either so
that's
it's
a pretty bit. You're looking for more limitations. You already have
Yeah.
a lot of limitations.
Yeah.
You can only be in certain places. You can only do it once a day. When you cast a spell, you pass out. Magic can only exist on these sort of ley lines, which would certainly lead to, well, let me ask this, magical communities being built along those pathways? No?
Yeah. Yeah, and it would kind of require like there's and I'm debating if there could be because this takes place in a university, like there could be a way of like, oh, we can theorize that there is a way to kind of harness that energy and put it in a little bottle so that we can take it with us, that we can have at least something to use, right? So that could be kind of something to like, it would be almost like the science of blah blah blah, right?
Okay.
Uh,
It could be.
so that way you can kind of it's not like so much, but it's still limited based on what you have. Like you can't, carry a bunch of it because I'm imagining this is very heavy. It is heavy to do. Like when you connect to this, it's like you are bearing the weight of the world because you basically are.
Okay. Can
you
you give me an example of a spell then that somebody might cast with this?
Sure. So, something that I've thought of is if you are looking for a very specific, if you were in a massive library with like a million books, you are looking for a very specific book, and you have absolutely no idea where it is, you would basically cast a spell. You would connect to a ley line that you know is underneath there, and you would essentially use a kind of because every spell is through a kind of gestural like movement and like almost like a dance like choreography, right? So you would cast that specific thing and then you would kind of ask, I need this book please, and then it would the ley line would go through the library, find the book for you and bring it here.
What
And
school
that
is
would
that?
require a lot of
Would that be illusionary, or what school is that in?
so that would be more of a so that would be an illusionary kind of magic because it involves the book being brought from one place to yourself. So that would be kind of an illusionary kind of thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Mhm.
So the answer you could use it to find a book. Okay, there's one thing
Mhm.
you could do with it. But so I guess you built it in such a way that you're saying you're bearing the weight of the world. Like you can only do one of these per day. But then
Mhm.
most of the examples you've listed are pretty small applications of that. So I would maybe kind of think of what are the way bigger applications of this? Like, because you may not need to add additional magical costs to these things because the magical cost is already so high. I mean, you could bump it up more if you said the ley lines have a limit to them. Every time you're drawing power from them, you are diminishing that school or the power of that everyone else can draw from. Maybe they deplete over time and they take hundreds of years to come back. Like that would sort of add really clear social costs on using them. For instance, laws on how much magic you can use or what type of magic you should be using, or is it illegal to cast spells in the first place unless you submit your approval form and it goes through like 9 different branches of government to get the stamp. So the social cost is already, or the mystical cost is already quite high. I would maybe think of other costs that you could layer in on top of this. So you can say if the ley lines are limited in some way, or if this diminishes the magic for everyone else, then that's one version of this. You could say every time we use the magic, gets either weaker or stronger. So if one person uses the same spell multiple times, then it either becomes worse or it becomes more powerful, meaning that the more that you use a single spell, the more obvious it gets, the more attention you're going to draw, and the more you're going to ruffle feathers of the magical community, because they can see you've been sort of doing extracurricular work off the books. That would be another option you could take. You could,
Yeah, I like that.
yeah, you could, we could say that it requires some kind of sacrifice to use. You have to kill a live animal every time you cast a certain spell or a certain school of spells, like medical spell. That comes up often in the sort of like transfer of energy sort of systems where it's like, well, you can take someone's injury, but then you have to give it to someone else, like yourself. So that's sort of like an additional wrinkle you can think about too. Something about this world seems like your wizards would have to have retinues, pretty consistent groups of followers. If they become so vulnerable after casting a single spell that they are now essentially passing out, you're going to need like a really tight-knit group, like an entourage, who can support you and act as your handlers and your helpers, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, yeah, I mean, there is kind of a core like group of people that's kind of, you know, near our main character a lot. And yeah, he does have, and there are people that kind of like in that group, there's different people that do like different kinds of magic. So it's not just one type of group, but there's always at least somebody that is like the rule is I'm only using magic today. Like and nobody else can. And then we kind of switch off. So it's
Oh, they're like a cabal that passes
yeah.
the sort of wizard staff from person to person.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, and then if I pass out, you have to make sure that I don't die.
Yeah, that's
And then
that's kind of a
tomorrow,
cool social structure.
right. And then tomorrow, right, exactly.
A quartet. Maybe each one has to,
Yeah.
maybe a sort of quartet of wizards would be one of each school. So you have one illusionary, one medical, one, what were the others? The elemental, and one audio. Well, these might have just been ideas. Maybe these aren't full schools.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. These are kind of like ideas.
oh, okay. I
Mhm.
kind of was thinking these were your 4 core schools. But in any case, if you did have 4 schools, then I could easily see that social structure has to have one of each, and they're sort of like checks and balances on each other. So therefore, if you use too much magic, the expectation is not only are you supposed to help and support the other members of your quartet, but if one of them starts going crazy, like doing too much magic, using it for too selfish reasons, or expending too much of their ley line, maybe the rest of the group is supposed to step in. So you
Yeah.
can police each other.
Yeah. That's actually a good little thought to consider for sure.
Yeah, or at least a partnership, if not all 4. At least one other wizard that's supposed to be like your partner. And whether it's at the school or whether it's even after the school, maybe every wizard they're like detectives, and that you're supposed to always have a partner.
Yeah.
So that's not a direct cost, but
Yeah.
that would lead to everyone having their own either one or multiple sort of additional gatekeepers or police that will be monitoring how you use the magic and making sure that you're using it for the right things.
Right.
Let me open it to everybody else though. What do you guys think could be some additional costs in Dakota's world that using magic might bear, whether they are mystical or whether they are social, physical, or any other effects?
Not just costs, I'm thinking workarounds. So having a magical item that can be charged, you can draw on like a battery or that kind of thing, but also the idea that if you're good at a thing, it takes less effort to do because you've practiced it, if does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so the less practiced you are, you know, it's like running a mile if a mountain, running a mile if you are a couch potato, right?
Right.
Sort of analogy. So those are two thoughts.
So there's a concept of once you're in Jianghu, like once you're in the kind of Wuxia world, it's like kill or be killed. So there's like like just by using magic, you're part of the will and part of the doom that awaits all beings that you enter the will, right? Once you accept the call to adventure, you're doomed to that kind of fate, and everyone usually never lives in old age there, right? So that's kind of like the I don't know what it's called, but in terms of like in your setting, which is academic, there's also an academic stigma, right? Once you're in the academic world, everyone else is like muggles. Like like have you ever like talked with the Ivy League person? They're very they don't understand. They don't understand. It's- it's, um, they don't understand.
Having a little trouble
Okay.
hearing. I think we're losing you a little at the end there. It might be the mic connection.
Yeah, when you talk to like a person in like high academics, right? Like you don't really respect their work. Not that you don't respect it.
We are only hearing every couple words from you, Mario. I'm sorry. You might have to switch to a different mic. Sorry about that. It sounded like a loose connection. Maybe is the plug like not all the way plugged in or something like that.
Sounded like Better Call Saul when he's doing the robot sex voice with the toilet paper tube and the wax paper. Anyway,
Yeah, it's headphones. I forgot I had it on.
Sounds better
Can you
now.
hear me?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So so I'm not sure how much you heard about you're in the like kind of the world, you're the short end of it, like when right, you're like doomed to the fate that all else world. So all you have to do is like set up an example of a person who's in the world and dies early, and then someone says everyone who's in this world always dies early, and then now you have that sort of doom that awaits you should you choose to accept it. And in the academic world, right, you're alienated from other people, or from the normals, because normals don't understand your work, therefore they don't respect your work, and then you kind of hate them for it, and they kind of hate you for it. And there's like this kind of, I'm not sure if it's a social aspect, but it's more like a doom that awaits all people that are that are in a different world. That's it.
Okay, some good ideas about social costs and elitism there. All right, Dakota, anything else you want to ask about while we have you?
I can't think of anything. I think Luke maybe had something, but I'm not.
yeah, I had two things.
Go ahead.
Uh, as a loophole or workaround, I was thinking um, time zones, sort of rules as written. If I can only use my power once a day, what if I cross the international date barrier or whatever and go back a day? Like, does that reset me? Um,
Right.
and
Depends on
the
your
other
DM.
thing,
Good.
yeah, I would never allow that.
No.
Um, or I would say yes, but it's gonna cost you. And the other thing is just my sort of go-to is this idea of like equivalent exchange. So if you want to heal somebody, you have to harm somebody. If you want to bring someone back to life, you have to kill somebody. If you want to destroy something, you have to create something. So that's a really easy, high cost sort of magic system, but I don't think it's for everybody. Just throwing it out there. Someone
Yeah.
might find that useful.
Yeah, definitely something to think about. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dakota. Hope that gave you some good thoughts there. Okay, we have 15 minutes. If anybody else wants to, well, let me switch my tab back over. If anybody else wants to get into their novel project setting, any questions or issues you're trying to resolve in terms of the world building?
I always have stuff, but I'm hoping other people have stuff.
We could get into whatever is unique about your society or magic system or technology. Go ahead.
Oh, technology and magic. I was just going to spitball like corporation names, but I guess that's not sci-fi. I guess that's sci-fi though. That's cyberpunk.
It can be,
Um,
sure.
So yeah, just tech like company names or products. I have like dinosaur milk is one. I have for my another project. I have oh God, what did I call it? It's a it's a sex enhancer product. I forget what I named it. Sultrex. The sex enhancer you sprinkle into your morning coffee. Um, and just I don't know, random crazy, air in a can. The more whimsical or like absurd things you can come up with that people would actually try to sell or are currently selling. That's just ridiculous. I
I
would
like
love
the
to hear it.
I like the ones that are kind of a more generic type of product, but they advertise that it can do a ridiculous number of things, like universal cream. It can fix your engine, or you can eat it, or you can spread it on your wall as wallpaper paste, or it's just universal
All right.
cream. It's whatever you want. It's cream.
Tabula rasa. What?
Tapioca rasa. Yeah.
Tabula pasta. Pasta that can be anything you want.
It has no shape. It is not. It is not shaped like anything at all. It is an amorphous blob of pasta.
Hold on, I need to write that one down for sure.
That's so silly. What about some non-Euclideanos? It's a cereal that does not conform to the laws of geometry. It consists only of tetrahedrons and hypercube-shaped flakes.
Non-Euclidean cereal is pretty good. I like that.
Non-Eucos. Let's hear some more. What else you guys got?
What are some dumb cyberpunk implants people would install? Like a like a pizza cutter, but just get really absurd with it. Like, oh, I have a coffee maker in my nipple. I have a um the face that got. Okay, I guess I'm using that.
I guess.
Uh
Just one? What's the other one do? The cream?
the other one is a AM FM radio.
Oh, okay, sure. Not even something for the coffee. Just
LED light. You could have like
Okay.
decorative LED light, like pimp your ride.
True. You can
Oh
do that.
yeah, like just like a goldfish or like a movie theater and stuff, like something people would put in a car, but that's pretty good. Pimp my torso.
How about eyes that you can turn off?
Like
Go ahead.
buy stuff for money, or to tell people to fuck off. Just write stuff. How little ticker tape that goes across the bottom of the news across your chest, whatever. Stocks.
Oh yeah. People would just sell their body for advertising. Like they
Yeah.
just have marquees and ads and TV screens. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm on this I have this app so I can rent out my dream space for corporations to use. They can make me dream about whatever products they want. I have to wear this big helmet to bed.
Airbnb for corporations. That's pretty funny.
What would that be?
Instead of renting a room, you rent like an office building or like a warehouse or something as an
Isn't
Airbnb.
that already kind of how they work though? Don't you normally rent an office space
Yeah.
to use for your company?
Well, I mean, like just for like a week, like, oh, I'm gonna buy your whole building for a week so I can do, corporate stuff. I
Okay,
don't know.
like
There's something there.
a pop-up corporation. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. I guess yeah, we're already well in that territory. Like all the you notice the architecture of McDonald's and Pizza Hut and everything has all gone away and they all look identical now, so that, if it goes out of business, you don't need to worry about remodeling.
What about a corporate carnival where every corporation runs a different booth or activity and it sort of feels like an old-fashioned carnival, but they're always sort of trying to market their product to you. It's like the textile corporation that makes the monkeys for the stuffed animals. We've got like the rubber corporation that makes the basketball for the toss game, and every booth is like themed around one corporate sort of their output or whatever it is that they market.
All right. I'm trying to also just come up with some clever names. Like, if anyone's played Cyberpunk 2077, the ads in that game are just great. They have insurance for like a radiation leak in your sector. They have moon cheese as a food product for when you're sky high, as their tagline. They have I don't know, like food that comes in a tube. I forget what that's called. They have just all kinds of absurd products.
Swedish. Foods that comes in a tube is called Swedish.
Swedish. Okay.
That's what I mean. Just Google food in a tube, Skagen Accord nations, any of those northern nations. Food that comes in a tube is like a thing up there.
There's also disposable weapons. So there's like a gun commercial, but it's a weapon you buy out of a cheap vending machine and like shoot it once and then throw it away.
Oh yeah, like single use, but buy it and buy it. Buy it and forget it kind of thing. That could work. Or just like, yeah, the vending machines that sell bullets on the corner is pretty instructive. That tells us a lot about the world.
Yeah.
Nacho's got cyborg kimchi fermenting compartment. Wow. There you go.
Hold on, I need to make room next to my kimchi fermenting compartment for this upgrade.
Yeah. My coffee
Uh,
maker is taking up too many of my megabytes. I'm gonna need to uninstall to get the kimchi package.
I guess there still would be hipster kind of like, I don't think kombucha is hipster anymore, but it used to be. Um, so yeah, I'll look into some of those. Uh, what I don't know, artisanal cardboard just popped into my brain for some reason. What are some dumb things that could be artisanal?
I know, but I just thought of something horrible.
Go ahead.
I mean, they're already working on them. Artificial wombs, good for puppies through people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the home artificial womb. Grow whatever you want. It's like a
Well,
3D printer.
what would they call it? Like Woombo, like a Woombus.
Like a womb bat.
Woman.
Yeah, no idea. The living womb. Womb room. Every house has to have a womb room.
Womb Pro.
Womb
Pro
Plus.
plus that.
Womb Plus is kind of good. Artisanal
Oh yeah, they could
air,
have
artisanal water.
like some absurd gender, like there could be like, Woombo for women and it's all pink and like doily, and then they have like Woombo Max for men and it's like black and like bulky. Just cost $1,000 extra or credits.
I liked in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, a character gets artisanal ice, and it comes in a box with some tongs like that, kind of set into velvet, and it comes with like a booklet, I guess, of like the history of that ice.
What is this? What is this from?
It's from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
pretty funny.
not a sci-fi world, but a surreal one.
I mean, that's not even that surreal. Like, this is, I could easily see this being like a product. Because I know there's like this process where they carve ice from higher altitudes, and then they like it's basically hand carved ice, and they sell it for a premium because like, oh, it's basically artisanal. So I could easily see this happening.
The funniest part of this moment is that it's actually contrasted to something else, because there's two guys that Kimmy is interested in. One of them's really poor and sort of like low class, and one of them's way too high class. The way too high class guy, she asked them both to bring ice to the party. The guy that's way too high class and sort of out of touch brings the artisanal ice in the box. The other guy brings a hunk of ice that fell off the top of a AC unit in the city. He just has like a hunk of dirty snow that he's brought, and that's like the contrast between them.
Okay. Dude womb. That's pretty good. Dude womb. I could see that like DOODWOOM. Dude womb.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
From Wombco. Good ideas, guys.
From Wombco. A womb for every room.
Yeah. For whatever mood you're in. You gotta grow a different creature.
Sure.
Sage suggests artisanal drugs. I only smoke filtered crack. Yeah, you could have sort of maybe like
Oh.
those commercialized street drugs that are
That
now like
is great.
yeah,
That is so good.
buy a little hit. You go to 7-Eleven and as you're getting your gas, grab a couple crystal meth disposable
Because they
types.
do this. They do this with like medication. Like the same medication will be in the same dose will be sold for different amounts based on like what it's for. So we could have artisanal drugs be like that. That's so corporatist. I love everything about that.
Yeah, it's good. Megan has suggested a wound bat just from marsupials. Wound bat.
What are some things that are sort of inherently valueless that people might try to sell for a premium, like sandwich ties? Um, I don't know, little worthless items that people would try to sell.
Salt packets, ketchup packets, those
Salt
bread
packets.
clips.
I get it.
Um,
I don't know.
two-
There was a time
half and
a
half.
couple years ago-
Go ahead.
There's a time a couple years ago, people were selling JPEGs at thousands of dollars. I don't know if you can get any
Yes.
that.
If you can, I'd love to hear it. Just like the ways people will come up with to sell nothing. NFTs would be a great example.
Catchphrases. People are always coming up and trying to sell their catchphrase to corporations. So there's like corpo soldiers on the street, and you come up, you're like, guys, just really quick, I've got a quick pitch for you, okay? Ready? It goes like this. Buy Woomco. It'll what would your I don't even know what your slogan would be that you're pitching for them, but like you would sort of maybe have I don't know. Or maybe you know what? Never mind. This is too dark.
That's a funny scene. Like you could have a scene like that where this guy pitches this thing and they type it into like the I don't know little hand scanner they have and they get like a thing back from corporate and they're like all right and then they place the guy under arrest and like haul him away to the ISO cubes.
Yeah, I do like the idea that they sort of will accept your pitch. Like we'll take it, but if it's not good, you're in trouble. Like maybe it's even like, all right, it'll take 8 seconds for our corporate AI to process that, and you've been denied. So we do have to tase you now. So for 4.5 seconds, you will have a very powerful electrical shock administered, sir. Thank you for your pitch. Good day.
Oh, skin oil. What if there's just a product called snake oil?
Pretty
Just
funny.
literally snake oil.
Maybe that's like the universal cream. Snake oil. It works for anything. It'll heal the sick. You can patch your walls with it. It'll fix the insulation. It'll even fix your computer virus. It'll do whatever you need. Snake oil from Snake Oil Co.
Snake tape. Tape. It's like gorilla tape or whatever.
I can see that being an actual name of a product. Yeah. Okay, we are getting towards the end of our time. There have been a lot of great ideas. Hopefully, you've got at least some fun inspiration there.
Salt packs and artisanal drugs are both like 10 out of 10.
Yeah, there's always something funny about commodifying something inherently useless, which is what's so funny about Fallout currency too, which is like they use bottle caps as money, which kind of just tells us where the world is at. Okay.
We could be here all day if we talk about the Fallout economy and how it doesn't make sense.
Right. It's sort of inherently absurdist. Like I think they're trying to sort of make fun of some of these ideas,
Yeah.
economic ideas as well.
Very much so.
Okay. We're at the end of our time for this event. Next week, we're back to boot camp. It'll still be open to everybody, though, because we're going into the early weeks. Remember, the first few weeks of any boot camp class are going to be free in public, too. So if you enjoyed this, if you stuck around until the end, at least, maybe come by next week. And if you haven't already signed up, do sign up for the upcoming sessions, which are going to be features, TV, and novels. There we go. And the links are right there in the chat. Tomorrow, we will be doing TV from 11 to 1. And later today, for members, we have lab from 4 to 6. So you can bring your questions, topics, and issues there. All right, we will wrap up for now. Thank you all for coming by, and we'll see you soon at your next script camp class or event.